All right, we are on air. Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming today. It is December 7th, and this is a meeting to check in on active development tasks for Backdrop CMS. On our agenda for today, I removed a couple of items we didn't have any updates for, but under new contributed projects, it looks like, Jeff, I think you added this. You want to cut a new release for the Drush module or commands. Do you want to give people an update on that?
Yeah, we've been working on issue number 7 for a while. I think it's up to a better place now. So the biggest thing is testing, because earlier iterations of that broke people's usage of Drush with Drupal 7. So I don't want to merge that in if it's broken. I've tested, but I've also tested things before and not tested the right cases. So any eyes on that would be great.
I know I was one that was having some problems with that, so I'd love to jump in and test that today after this meeting, but you probably need more testers, so if there's anyone else who wants to work on that too, that would be great.
Yep, thank you. That'd be awesome.
It looks like we have a new module this week, or maybe it was last week, freeze frame. I'm not sure we mentioned that, so I'll just throw that out there too. And I committed a bunch of features from Stripe integration into the Stripe module yesterday, and I was going to do a new release, but then I got nervous because it's credit card processing and wanted to give it like a week of testing. So if anyone is looking for the ability to add a web form to their site that has a payment component so that people can pay with a credit card, I'd love to get some testing on that. It's the 1.2 branch, I think 1.x, 1.2. Or maybe it's 2.1. I don't remember. There's a separate branch there with a new work on it. So if anyone needs that, I've got it in production right now, taking credit card payments, which is great. But I want to make sure that it works for all of the use cases people imagine and not only mine. So I'd love to get more users on that too. If I don't have any problems in the next week, I'll issue a release, but it'll be great to get some testing. Other stuff, let's see, forum site update. Doc Wilmot has been doing a ton of great work on the forum. I want to apologize for the spam. I noticed today when I finally got my Franz running that everybody had been trying to ping me to deploy some spam prevention stuff. So sorry about that. It is deployed now. And I went through and tried and removed a bunch of the spam comments that were on there. So hopefully that'll make up for my transgressions. I'm also wanted to say that I'm super happy to see how many people are using the forum, which is great. I mean, we knew people needed it, but it's great to see that now that it's up, everyone's just kind of jumping right in. So great job, Doc Wilmot, for getting it up. And thanks everybody for using. I went through and answered a couple of issues in there this morning and tried to figure out how to use it myself. And I must admit, it's a fun experience just getting in there and seeing what people are doing. So yay forum. I would like to include an announcement in our next newsletter, letting people know that the forum is ready for action. And in order to do that, I'd like to have a blog post on the website where we can announce the forum that we can link to from the newsletter. So I'm not sure if Dr. Wilmot will get a chance to see this. I wanted to give him first dibs at writing that news post, but if anybody else wants to write a news post up about the forum, that would be, if he doesn't have time or ability, I'd love to get that done too. So it's kind of what I'm thinking for the forum. Also, Jeff, I didn't get a chance to look at your pull request for backdropcms.org, but there is a bunch of work going on there in terms of cleaning up some of the other issues we had related to the new homepage section. I saw there was a pull request for the how to install backdrop page, and I'll take a look at that today after the meeting. And there's also some work going on in the header and footer stuff. So it's great that we're getting some activity on our main site as well. So thanks for working on that, and I'll try and get caught up today. Next on the issue is backdrop CMS. The software itself, and usually Quick Sketch should give us an update, but he's not here right now. So I'll just try and go through. I don't know if anyone else has any updates on these, but feel free to interrupt me if so. It looks like there's still a handful of cross-ports from Drupal that need reviews and probably updates. I think some of those pull requests need to be rebased, if not reworked to get tests passing. And then it looks like we have items for 1.9, which is January 15th. So code freeze for that is now in less than a month. Our focus on that was supposed to be the media, library, meta, in particular, the 3 issues about being able to manage an existing file, being able to upload a file separate from a file field on a different entity, or to have different types of files. So we're calling them file entity bundles, but it would be the ability to separate like a PDF from a video from an image and have different fields on each type. So caption field on an image or a location field on a video in a way that those things are managed separately. So that's taking a lot from the file entity module in Drupal 7. And we have a bunch of pull requests that need work in order to get those ready for 1.9. I think we still have time to do all of them because we have a whole month and a lot of them are super close. But I'd love to see those get a little closer. So as we're coming up on the holidays and people have spare time, there tends to be a flurry of activity on Backdraft, which is strange because that's when everything else stops getting attention. But if you need something to work on, I would definitely recommend taking a look at the media stuff because that's something that we'd love to see get moved forward for the next release. Under general discussion, we have a recurring item here for translation and internationalization. The note that's in here is that we're working on that in the I-18NQ in order to determine our priorities. I'm not sure if this is something we want to talk about every week, but Olaf, if you have any thoughts about something that we should maybe have it as a reminder, or if you have any updates for anyone, I'd love to let you fill us in on that. Or not.
So here I am. So there are no updates this week because I'm currently testing the fixed PODX module for the translation server.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm underway, so nothing to report at this time.
Okay. So that's exciting. I'm not sure if we talked about that last week or not. I think we did, but Nate fixed the PODX module, which I think is the tool that scrapes all of the strings out of Backdraft and makes them available for translation. I think that, Jeff, you wrote most of that port, which was fantastic, and then Nate just cleaned up the JavaScript parsing part of it. So I think that's great that that's in a testing state. I think that'll get us to the point where we can start actually translating everything, which is great. That's where we want to be. So thanks for testing that, Olaf. I think that's going to be huge for our people who need translations. Okay, is there anything anyone is dying to chat about this week?
I did rework the PR for node translations, showing the translation links on the node. Nate wanted it to be in the positive action rather than a negative action. So that just needs review again.
Okay.
Yes, Mike is here. Hi, Mike.
I am
here. We didn't talk for a while about the reference module.
Yeah.
And I remember that at the beginning of the summer, we talked about making it an official module. So, but I guess I had a look recently and I didn't find it in the project browser. So, do you think?
Yeah, I guess I have to do an official release. I did a beta release, I guess, or an alpha release, but I guess you have to do a non-alpha or beta release to end up in the project browser, right, Jen?
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I mean, I'm fine if we just call the current release like the first release. I mean, it doesn't have test coverage, but most of the functionality is there.
So I think, Jeff, did you get around that for Drush by naming it 000 or 001 instead of 100 for, I think there's a way that it's just the naming convention, Mike, that prevents it from showing up in the project browser. So if you wanted to name it with zeros instead of ones, I think that would make it appear there, even if you weren't ready to call it a 1.0 release.
Make it zeros, make it version 0?
Yeah. So like the version string is what makes it decide whether it's an official release or not. And so it needs to be like 1.x.1.0.0, like it needs to be in that format. But I think if you make that 0.0.1 instead of 1.0.0 or whatever name you want, it'll show up in the project browser.
Do I keep the alpha on there or just?
No, so if it has an alpha, beta, or dev, it won't show up because that's considered not usable.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not in the project browser, it is in the contrib thing. So if anyone tried it out and has used it, I mean, if there's been some testing and it's working okay, then we could do an official release.
There are a couple people who are using it. I think all of the issues they've run into ended up in the issue queue. I am also working on a project right now. I think I might have mentioned this before, that it's a Drupal 7 to backdrop upgrade that has a term reference and entity reference and references fields in it. And so I thought it would be a perfect candidate for consolidating into reference, and I can start working on all those upgrade paths that I was grumpy about a year ago. So if you want to create a release now, I can go ahead and start working on pull requests for those paths as I'm working on this upgrade. So that will help too. And I'll also be able to figure out like which pieces of functionality are missing from which project and if they need to exist or not as I go through that. So.
Okay.
And I think we do, I think Clonos was also getting on us to get that like featured status for a module. And I think there is a checkbox on backdropcms.org. So if we have a module that we think is going to be a candidate for core inclusion, we can check the box. We just have to fiddle a little bit with the sort order in the view to make sure that those show up at the top. And since we don't have any with the box checked yet, we haven't done that. We also want to style it a different background color or something. So as soon as we get references up there, we can start to move forward on all of that too and see if we can kind of make that show up at the top of the list there on Project Browser and on backdropcms.org. So that'll make Clonos happy. Okay. Well, if there's not anything else to talk about, maybe we should look at the schedule just really quickly since calendars are fun. Next week is normal. 22nd, 29th. Okay, so we've got 3 meetings before code freeze. Just to put that out there.
So, by the way, what do you think about 3 weeks before code freeze? Is it realistic to get the file-related things?
Some of them are very close.
Get them in the issue.
I think we can for sure get 2 in. We can get the upload a file separately and the manage files. And the one with file entity bundles, I think is maybe only about 75% ready. So it depends on how hard the remaining 25% is.
Yeah. Yeah, I was asking because it was the how do you call it? Yeah, the main goal I think of the release to get the file-related things in, and yeah, I can't evaluate. Sometimes I think I am not coding, and I'm not sure if enough people will do something in time. And I can only help testing and so on. Yeah, but let's hope.
We usually get a little increase in activity over the holidays just because people aren't at work and they have more time. So I wouldn't discount it yet. I know, at least for me personally, and a couple of people I'm working with, for some reason things are really crazy right now in terms of the amount of work that we're doing. But hopefully holidays will start, and that's why everything's crazy now, is that we all know that there's like an end coming soon, and as soon as the end happens, then we get time off to work on other stuff. So that's at least what I'm hoping for. But I don't know. I mean, it depends. I think like the fact that two of those issues are so close, they'll pretty much get in. The third one is kind of iffy, but we'll see. If somebody shows up and they're like, I have, you know, a week off and I want to devote to it, it could get in. So we'll just see if that somebody shows up and if they happen to have a week of time or not.
Yeah. Maybe it makes sense to also ask personally or via mention the people who worked for a time on some of the issues.
Yeah.
Because I remember there were 2 or 3 people who for a time make really cool stuff and then disappeared, and maybe.
Yeah, that's a great idea, especially for that one particular issue that people had started on, just to kind of give it a little bump and be like, hey, you know, we're 3 weeks from code freeze. We would love it if this got in for the next release. Let us know what we can help with, or what, if you can or can't work on it, and see how close we can get it. That's great. All right. Is there anything else that we should talk about today? Or should we wrap it up? I've got some testing on Drush to do. All right. Well, thanks guys for coming. Sorry we started a little late. I'm glad you were able to make it, and I look forward to talking to you next week, if not before.